Let's have a nice round of applause right now. The lady with the electric pants, Angie Kircher.
They're the, I will not say what I call them because it is not appropriate, but mother something money pants, because they are. So they're very snazzy. So hi, nice to see you all. I'm thrilled that you are here, and I'm really excited to talk about money mindset. It is something I think that all of us can get some value in. And if you are uncomfortable talking about money, good. I'm glad you're here, because we're gonna kind of work through some of those stories that we have about money. So a little bit about me. I am a hypnotherapist. I used to be a hospice nurse, so that's fun. So turned from that, you might wonder how the heck do you get into hypnotherapy? I had a very life-changing experience with hypnosis during COVID when anxiety was 1,000 out of 10 and nothing was helping. Hypnosis was the thing that actually helped me completely alleviate anxiety that I'd had for like 30 years. So it was a big deal. And so that kind of transitioned to, this is so powerful, how can I help people? And then use that principle to build my business. And then got into money mindset naturally, as one does. When you are forced to deal with money in your own personal business, it's very scary. So I educated myself a lot, used the hypnotic principles to really work on money mindset. And the principles, within 2 months of launching my business, 2 or 3, I had replaced my nursing income full time. So this stuff works. And I don't say that, if anybody knows me, I don't say that with ego. I say that with, it's possible. And I use the principles. I'm going to try to give you as much value as I can tonight, because it's a big deal. And I grew up, maybe a lot of you can relate, but I was not spoon-fed with a silver spoon. We had to ration water for showers. It was rough. And so I definitely had some serious poverty consciousness. And Dave Ramsey was my savior in my 20s, get out of debt and squirrel away money. And that is not how I live anymore, because I don't have to worry about that. I have a very different viewpoint that I've kind of moved through that phase. So love Dave Ramsey, great principles when you're moving through debt, but we're talking about elevating here. So how many of you want to create financial abundance? You can be honest, I better see every frickin' hand raised. Girl, hand. And if you're uncomfortable, again, good. Let's work through this. So if you want to take notes, it might be cool just for reflection points, or as Tony's doing, take out your camera and take a picture. These are great things to reflect on. And if you're a business owner, if you're a person who wants to scale, who wants to have more, bigger, better, thinking about this is really, really important. So if you could have abundance, unlimited, what would you do in life? Would you travel more? Would you support your family differently? Would you donate to causes that right now you can't? Maybe you don't have the resources. What would you have? Maybe a different house. Maybe you're looking to downsize to single level living because the knees are getting a little cracky or something. Or you want to have just more experiences with your family. There's so many things. And then what would you create? Now that's fun, because a lot of us in here are business owners. A lot of us are probably like me, multi-passionate, where you want to do all the things, always. So you could scale things, you could do things. So it's really fun to think about possibilities, because it all first starts with a thought. I believe, my personal opinion, that your desires were here, placed within you for a reason. Every single one of us has innate gifts, innate talents, innate skills. That is your little spark of genius. And I believe that's what our purpose is a lot of times. And when we follow that, abundance flows naturally. So it's just a little pep talk. So we're going to talk about mindset, because as Magic Brad, it's not Magic Mike, it's Magic something. It's a different show. So we were taught from an early age a lot of stories, right? You don't trust yourself. You've got to ask somebody else to validate your intuition, to check in, to make sure it's the right move. We don't talk about money. That's just not kind. We don't talk about that. You don't talk about your salary, I don't talk about mine. We don't want to overshadow your brother. He's have a hard time. He's always been struggling. We don't want to overshadow him. Or you don't want to overshadow your parents. There's a lot of shame sometimes that comes up with I can't do better than my parents did. You don't want to stand out from the crowd. That goes back to our primitive instincts as the animal brain. We don't want to be ostracized separated from the crowd because on a very primitive level, we believe that we will die if we're not a part of the crowd. So there's a very strong instinct we have to fit in. And, you know, a lot of people don't feel comfortable asking for what they want, you know, asking for that raise, being really firm in a boundary with a client. I had a great conversation with somebody in here, insurance gentleman, Michael, about, you know, firing the clients that aren't aligned. Like, we get uncomfortable doing those things, but they're wasting our time and our money and our resources. So why does it matter? These are all subconscious-based stories, and we're going to go into this a little further. But you might be familiar with Joshua, who's talked about subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is what's beneath the surface. So you guys sitting here absorbing everything I'm saying, you're consciously interpreting, receiving that information, but your subconscious is filtering that. So we all are having a different experience right now based on the information. That's all within our subconscious mind. So it's just beneath the surface. And it drives 95% nearly, they say, around 90 to 95% of our habits, our behaviors, our beliefs, our thoughts. So if you think of, for example, your morning, I would guarantee most of you, your Monday through Friday mornings look kind of the same because it's a habit. And a habit's not a bad thing. It can like shortcut time because you just know how to do the things. You don't think about them. But thoughts are habits too. The way we think about money, the way we think about what we're worthy of or not worthy of, that's a habit. And we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. Like, I don't know who calculated that, but that's freaking impressive and crazy. Like, you're not even aware of the thoughts you're having. So think of potentially what it's stirring up in you that you have no clue. And, you know, we're really not aware of the subconscious patterns because they're subconscious. So there's ways that you can figure that out by kind of looking at your external life. That's a reflection of the internal. But we don't necessarily realize when we're having subconscious blocks around money, around confidence, around our abilities. So we are most influenced up until about the age of 8 years old. I think it was Aristotle who said, give me a boy until he's 7 and I'll show you the man. That's what he means. Like, as little kids, we are these little sponges that just absorb everything around us. And that shades our world. So a lot of, at the time, you know, our parents were very influential. We had a lot of beliefs about Santa Claus, sorry if I'm ruining it for anybody, but you know, like we believe that was reasonable that a man flew around the entire world and dropped presents everywhere, like that, you know, but as an adult, we're like, well, that's not possible. So we just kind of take in all these things, but that also is money consciousness. You know, how we were raised dictates a lot of how comfortable or not we feel with money. So how do we get these beliefs? Okay, so most influenced up until about the age of 8, but then beyond that, we can get influenced as well. And so authority figures can influence us. So a doctor tells you something kind of scary. You can have a very strong physical reaction that can influence the way you feel, and suddenly you're afraid of doctors. You know, so think of different kind of influencers or people that are out there. Or a lawyer, maybe you're going through a divorce and your lawyer's like, you're never gonna win this case. And you're like, oh God, they're the authority, I'm never gonna win this case. And suddenly that's your belief pattern. People and family around us, you know, so if you're in business wanting to scale and your family's like, that's not possible, you might be getting really down on yourself, right? Like you might be like, oh my God, like people that love me are saying that this is like a crazy pipe dream. And so people around us can be really, really powerful. A traumatic or emotional event. So for a lot of us, COVID was really traumatic, you know, and that caused a lot of impact for people about the world, about different things. So that's just kind of an example of an emotional event. Or even like a car accident. You might suddenly have a fear of being on the road at a certain time of day because a car accident happened that you were involved in. That can impress the subconscious mind and make a new belief set that suddenly this is scary. And repetition. The more we hear repeated messages, if you heard as a child, be quiet, you're too loud, over and over and over, you're probably not gonna wanna speak up too much because you're afraid of being seen, you're too loud, you know, so that can be really damaging. So I wanna dive in more to the stories about money because there's a lot. Like I filled up this little page here, but there's a lot more. So here's a few, I won't read all of them to you. My favorite, as Magic Mike said, is money doesn't grow on trees. It actually does. It's paper, and paper's from trees, so that doesn't That's not accurate. But there's a lot of beliefs, right? Like I wasn't born in a family that had wealth. So like who am I to have that? I'm not pretty enough. I'm not attractive enough. Like who am I to have that kind of money? Like only the really hot influencers are out there doing this. Wealthy people are stingy, corrupt, rude, fill in the blank. There's a lot of beliefs about that. And when you look at media, oh my gosh, the media on when you look at movies, how they portray wealthy people, right? Like, are they not snobby jerks? Like, they're always portrayed. You don't often see them, like, or, you know, they're a Pretty Woman where they're like, you know, buying a prostitute lady and then turning her and like become the saviors. Like, they're not portrayed well. You don't often see good stories about people with money. Taxes, that's a big thing for people in business. If I make more, I gotta give the freaking government more. I don't wanna do that. So I'm gonna like try to maximize my deductions and make sure that I make just under this amount so I don't hit this next bracket or whatever. What if I lose it all? That is huge, especially when you're in business and you hit a pillar of income. That can trip in, like, oh my God, I've made this, now what if I lose it? And you go into that scarcity contraction state, right? So money is the root of all evil. For those that grew up in religious homes, I heard this a lot. And that was really, really damaging to believe that a tool, a neutral tool, is evil. That in and of itself is evil. That was hard. How do we begin to shift those stories, right? Because those are subconscious stories. Those are not stories that you made up that you have to believe. Those are stories that you somehow received, that beautiful brain took on as though it was yours, and we get to change it. So I want you to begin to challenge every single story or money thought you have. Is it ultimately true that people with money are evil? No. Is it ultimately true that because I didn't come from wealth, I can't have wealth? No. Is it ultimately true that if I don't know, that I have to be really, really banging hot to make money? No. There are a lot of interesting people that are very wealthy. So you kind of start to challenge them, right? And it just kind of gives your brain a moment to be like, oh, okay, that maybe isn't totally true. Okay, I'm not evil if I have money. I'm actually a really good person. And what I'll tell you is money is an amplifier. So if you're inherently a good person, you're gonna be a good person with money. If you're a shitty person, you're gonna be a shittier person with money. Like, you're not gonna do good with it, right? It's not the money itself. It is simply a neutral tool that gets to accentuate what's already within. So challenge them, you know, and just question them. And so what I tell people when I'm working with clients is jot these down. When you have money stories come up, you may not fully know the thought, but you'll get an inkling. Like, someone goes to pay you and you're like, ooh, you kind of contract and you're like, oh my God, oh, am I worthy of receiving? Are my services valuable enough to charge that? Right? Like, you can kind of figure out where that thought comes from. So I would encourage you to just get curious. Like, what is the thought beneath the surface here, or the belief? And then just start to challenge it. Is it ultimately true? Because I guarantee every single story you have about money, you will find that it is not ultimately true. You can somehow figure out a way that that is not the absolute undying truth. So once you've done that, tell a better story. Okay, if your story was, I'm not worthy of this kind of wealth or this kind of money or having a successful business, what's a better story you could tell yourself? Like, I'm getting wealthier every day. Like, I'm learning, this is fun. I get to enjoy money. It's safe to have money. There's so many stories you could tell yourself. And then you want to begin to embody that story. So what they say is act as if. Like, what does a person who has a lot of money do at a coffee shop? They don't look at the board and say, oh my God, I want that latte, but the coffee is 25 cents cheaper, so I'm just gonna get that instead. Like, no, they get the damn latte. Like, you can make a little upgrade, you know, kind of act as if. Now, I'm not talking about going broke on like spending as though you're a multimillionaire yet, but would someone who has what you desire be making the choice you're making in that moment? Or would they have a different viewpoint? And maybe you don't fully understand what they would do, but you could imagine, is this something that I'm doing out of scarcity? I used to be that girl, you guys. I would go to Caribou and be like, oh, I don't want to upgrade with that extra shot of espresso because that's 75 cents more. Like, what? No, it's fine. Get the freaking coffee. So I make little upgrades, and that's a way to kind of stretch your comfort zone, right? It's just small incremental upgrades. And maybe if it's not financially feasible to do that, then maybe you want to begin to just wear a really nice set of shiny pants out of the house that you don't normally wear. Or a perfume that is put in a cabinet, or maybe you want to bring out your fine china that was from grandma. Something that makes you feel a little bougie, right? That can kind of help you embody the essence of what it's like. And so ask yourself too, what do I wish were true for me? I wish my business generated X every month. I wish I was more confident to prospect. I wish I could get in front of a crowd in shiny pants and talk. So what do you wish could be true? And it could be anything. I wish I could have a yacht. The sky is the limit. Money is such an unlimited resource here, especially in America where we print it a lot. There's no shortage, and that's another belief too. That's another really powerful belief. If I have something, I'm taking away from someone else. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're not. There is enough for everybody. And so you get to challenge that. So does me having an abundant life mean that this person's affected? No. They got their own journey. But it has nothing to do with you. So what do you wish to be true for you? And then make a list of how money supports you. So it kind of goes back to that kind of initial conversation. What would you do with the money? What would you create? How could you give in ways that support people that you can't do right now? Because I imagine a lot of us would love to support our family, our friends, take them out to do fun things, do things differently that maybe the resources aren't quite there yet for, that we want to do. So think about all the ways money supports not only you, but your goals. And have them be personal too. Maybe you want to get pedicures every week or massages every day. Friggin' yeah. I got a meal plan and service on my list. I got a lot of bougie stuff that I'm I want someone to come to my house and do this for me. And it's okay to want those things. There's nothing to be ashamed of in wanting those things. And in having those things, I also think about it supports me in that I can show up better for my family. I can show up more peaceful because I'm not running around like a crazy person doing everything always. I've got supports in place. So it's even beyond just even the physical tangible, but what does it offer you? Some maybe peace of mind that you don't have to work so hard. Or you can choose, you have choices. And that's really what abundance provides, is choice. That's what we're chasing at the end of the day. Freedom and choice, right? I think all of us went into, if you're a business owner, you kind of left the matrix to have choice. And when you have money, you have more choices, which means you have more freedom. You've got more abilities, and that's not a bad thing. We go into this work to have that stuff, to be able to help people on a bigger level, and that's a beautiful thing. So we've talked about some practical things to do, okay? Which are, making the lists of how money supports you, beginning to challenge your money stories, right? Just looking at what's coming up. If y'all just do even that part, I guarantee you're gonna make big movements in your subconscious already. But how to actually reprogram your mind is what I love, and it's hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is a great way. It's not the only way, but through hypnotherapy, you can actually get to that root belief of what's in the subconscious. What happened when you were 5 that made that belief so firm? And reprogram that at the root, right where it starts. And through repetition, through hypnosis, you actually are creating new neural pathways in the brain. Because right now your neural pathways are scarcity, scarcity, scarcity. Not everybody, right? But those of us that have struggled with it, scarcity. Oh my God, a bill's coming up. Oh my gosh, I got this thing and I'm gonna be living in a box on the street I used to. That was where I'd go to really fast. It was very stupid. But so, you wanna reprogram that, and that actually creates new brain neural pathways, which instead of programming to the worst case scenario, it's oh, it's fine. Okay, I'll figure it out, because you will, you're resourceful, and then the brain just oh, that's fine, it's a bill, we'll figure it out, it's good. So that can happen through hypnotherapy, and I love hypnotherapy because it fast tracks all of this momentum. But it can also be done through repetition. So positive affirmations. It takes a little longer. You're going to have a little more conscious mind resistance because you're consciously doing the work, but it can happen and it can change. So you catch yourself talking about like a scary money thing, and then you begin just to like, oh, no, shifting, like, no, I am so grateful. All this money is coming in. And you just kind of move over to that. So affirmations are great. Having reminders in your home are great. You could do a little visualization before bed. There's a lot of ways to reprogram the mind. And then take inspired action, because as you begin to step into this new mindset, I'm a big believer that universe, the greater being, you get signs. You get little nuggets of like, follow this breadcrumb. This is your next logical step. And you'll start to notice things just kind of work out. And you're kind of going in flow with life versus against the current. And it gets a lot easier when you take inspired action. So you'll get those little things as you trust the process, as you begin to really embody your money mindset even more. And it is my belief that as people in business, we are here because we are change makers. We are disruptors. We want to make an impact. And in order to make an impact, having prosperity, financial abundance is a part of how we can do that on a bigger, better scale. But it does start within. We have to do the work ourselves, because scarcity mindset can happen at any level. You can have multi-million dollars and be in freaking scarcity mindset. Like, it doesn't matter how much or how little you make. You can still be in scarcity. So if you don't do the inner work on challenging those stories, that crap's gonna come right back up, because that is what's programmed into your mind. And I can imagine, you've all heard the stories of people that have won the lottery, broke within a year or two. They never addressed mindset. People that went into football, made a ton of money, never addressed their mindset around money and were broke quickly. Didn't have good managers, didn't have people to support them on that kind of transition. It's an identity change. You are literally changing your identity when you do the work of this. Like, you're becoming someone who maybe didn't feel worthy of that, of having money and all the opportunity, to someone who embodies that and is like, heck yes, I am worthy and I'm here to have a good time. So enjoy it.